Hey everyone, hopefully we're live now. Let me know if the audio levels are good. So good on my end, but had some audio issues last week, so let me turn myself down a little bit. Hopefully that's a little bit better. How's everyone doing? It's just a little bit of weird setup we've got here. Basically just going to be doing some research and such. Yeah, this Grand Theft Auto Vice City just has kind of a memorableness to it that other GTA games did. It's the first one where it gave the main character an actual character. Like I think you could actually choose, if I recall, either GTA 1 or 2. I think it might have been 2. Possibly the first one as well. You could choose a character, but Vice City was the first one that actually gave you like a character to play from any sensible point. I always just like that. It gave you a character, gave you a backstory. This is a mall shootout. It's going to be a little violent. Just stream autoplay, which is kind of weird. Normally it asks me if it wants to play or not. I guess we're just playing automatically. Yeah, how's everyone doing? I know I've not been really active on this this channel for a bit. I want to get back into streaming weekly. I want to play some System Shock probably next week. It's been a year. Let me put it that way. Yeah, it's odd that it'll just let me like autoplay. Okay, whatever. Hopefully I don't lose stream. So yeah, I'll probably be writing off screen here, but I'll also be checking out the questions and comments and everything like that. Just hanging out on Sunday, just chill out on GTA Miami Vice and not Miami Vice, GTA Vice City, and things like that. I would like to play some clips from shows and stuff, but that'd probably get me struck. So I'll probably stick to gameplay for now. I could probably show stills, so if I ever bring up anything, I could probably find a still image from a show. Hey David, how's it going? And Dante Davis, some from Friendly Faces here. It's been crazy. Last year, moving and just getting that quintet documentary done. I sent over the voiceover to my friend and editor who I hired to edit the initial draft of that video, and simultaneously I was working on the Miami Vice documentary. I've actually been working on it for almost a year now, which is kind of crazy, on and off. But yeah, basically I started trying to do 2 videos at a time, and then end up kind of having to basically do full throttle on the quintet documentary, and then yeah, and then the Diablo opportunity kind of came along where I could actually release the timely video. Let me do a different clip. This one's kind of loud. Here we go. Oh, more shooting. Okay, lovely. And long story short, just lots of work behind the scenes. So you haven't seen much, but I did get that Diablo documentary done, which was a lot longer than it was supposed to be, but people seem to be enjoying it, so that's good. Yeah, the soundtrack was incredible. Hoping I'll have to probably mute it if we play any of the soundtrack. It's so copyright sensitive that I think the re-release that they did, the remastered version, was actually, they took out a lot of the really good music. Like they took out Michael Jackson and several other bands because they couldn't get the licenses back, I guess, or it was too expensive for them. So yeah, the newer version, aside from the visual changes, which people weren't too happy about, the soundtrack is definitely lacking. But press the tab button to pick up this weapon. It's weird that pop-up is still there. Yeah, this is just gameplay I recorded before, so I'm just going to be playing that on basically on a loop for a while. I've got a good chunk. I've got a couple gigabytes, about 12 gigabytes of footage for GTA Vice City. I've got GTA 1, GTA 2, GTA 3, Hotline Miami, all kind of stuff. Also got some from the actually all of the Miami Vice games, but primarily the 2004 and 2006 game. None of them are particularly groundbreaking, but they're all right. Oh, you played Diablo Day today? Yeah. Still not all the way through the campaign yet. I've been playing it kind of off the side, co-op, but getting close. I think we're about to finish, but I think we kind of really took our time because I think you're supposed to be able to finish right around the time you get to level 50, and then you can then unlock Nightmare mode. But we're still pretty far away from finishing, and we're already like level 52. So I think we just took our time with all the side content. Was this area so? This might be a spoiler if you haven't played the game already. Apologize. Let's find some more generic gameplay. Oh yeah, this is where I'm doing a whole shootout to try to get. I really wanted to get some footage for basically when we get to 5-star, Sonny and Crockett can come up and drives up in a cheetah and tries to take you out. So I was trying to get footage of that. It's actually more difficult than it sounded. Yeah, I was actually just talking to my wife about that. Jesus, could we get to a footage that doesn't have all police chatter? I guess that's not really going to be very easy. Yeah, this game is story-wise is almost like a 50-50 between Scarface and Carlito's Way. Like all the characters, all the major themes and plot and stuff is basically a hybrid between those two, with like a dash of Goodfellas, but primarily just those two. Yeah. Decent movies. I think Carlito's Way could have been a lot better, but it was alright. It doesn't make it very clear that it's a period piece. I thought it was just like really dated looking, but it was actually trying to, supposedly was set during the 70s. They really need to tone down. It might be because of my frame rate, but the police chatter is so frequent. Yeah, was it really that radio chatter really that common? I know there's a couple of glitches that I was running it. I'm not running it modded, but I do have a slight, I think I have my configuration set for 60 FPS, which you should be able to play. Most everything runs okay. There were a couple of vehicles that were kind of bugged out on 60 FPS. Helicopter was okay, relatively okay, but oh, thanks Canonical D for the praise. Yeah, the video Diablo 3 video was so good. It's high quality that inside that makes your videos an insta-click. Thanks, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I put a lot of time into it. I tried to get it. I was rushing it a bit to get it out before Diablo 4 release because I know that would just basically would be drowned in Diablo content at that point. But it also is like talking about a 10-plus-year-old game at that point, so it wasn't exactly. It was timely, but also not timely. So kind of funny that way. I just didn't want to do some sort of Diablo 4 video that would be immediately outdated. That was the idea, is just to make something kind of evergreen that you could come back years later and watch that wouldn't be horribly outdated. Hopefully things are relatively... I know I got a couple factual errors, a couple things that I could have expanded on, but you know, that's going to happen. Whenever you get 500,000 eyes on a video, you're going to get some feedback, so that's going to be expected, but I think I got most of the things right.
Why don't you come along and show me if you're any use? I might just do that. The name's Lance, by the way. Tommy Versetti. Let's go.
Oh, every frame of pause? I have no idea. Occasionally I just get hit up by Mauler and end up appearing on a podcast. Usually can always make it. A couple of times I've had to decline because either I was working or whatever, but most times I try to make myself available for them. A lot of fun. Last one I was on, I think I was doing, oh yeah, I had to play Atomic Heart, which I actually enjoyed somewhat. Definitely a janky game, but it was all right. Yeah, Miami Vice video's been in the works for quite a while. I'm trying to wrap up. Basically, I just figured that maybe a live stream while I'm working on it and thinking things through might help kind of inspire me to wrap this up. I have tons of words written, and I've gone over a few times several of the sections. I have probably close to 10,000 words on Miami Vice alone. And I think probably the weakest part of the script so far is the post Miami Vice stuff, like all the movies and video games and stuff it inspired, which I'm working on as well. So I'm trying to get like a 50-50 balance of like 50% Miami Vice and why it was great, and 50% everything it kind of inspired and all the influence it had. Oh, this particular, I remember this particular, oh, that clip was over. I think it might have skipped a clip. All right. But that particular mission in the alleyway was super annoying. I had to try that so many times to get through it. I think I was running into some issues. About 90% of the game ran fine at 60 FPS, but I noticed that a couple vehicles would kind of stutter, like the traction wouldn't work as well. It was weird. Crazy how the damage modeling works as well as it did back then. Is this the released HD? No, this is not the HD version. This is the OG PC edition with very, very, very minor alterations. I think the game itself is pretty much as is. I think I was able to tweak the resolution within NVIDIA settings, so I guess you could consider that modded. It's basically unmodded though. I just didn't look like how it looked at 30 FPS, but some of the game's physics are tied to frame rate, so like this looks perfectly fine. This plays just exactly like the game did at a 60 FPS, but occasionally I'll run into an issue where like a vehicle will not go properly like forward or backward because of the FPS, so a little funky. I won't include any of that glitchy footage. I'll be able to kind of, it's pretty obvious when it's not acting right, so. Yeah, Miami completely transformed. It's actually funny. Both city council members, the film industry down there, mayors, and all sorts of other people. Okay, unfortunately I'll have to mute this part. This one has a copyrighted song in it. Basically, yeah, all sorts of people have claimed that Miami was basically a retirement home for a long time. It was full of immigrants, retirees, and it wasn't a very happening place. And combined with that, a bunch of cartels used the Miami-Dade area as like their essentially their entrance to the country. Something like 70% of all drug trafficking went through the Miami area at one point for the entire country. So you can imagine that didn't do a great thing for the city, but at the same time, you essentially had, then you had basically Scarface, which didn't really paint a very good picture of Miami. But then conversely, you had Miami Vice, which portrayed it as a dangerous but an exciting city. It both portrayed the good and the bad, and kind of had more of a hopefulness compared to Scarface, which was extremely kind of dour and you know, exciting, but also very not very uplifting at the end. So it kind of provided a much more attractive image of Miami. In fact, it actually painted a much more interesting and vibrant version of Miami than actually existed, to a point where, because of the show, they were literally repainting buildings and remodeling areas of Miami to fit the show's aesthetic, to a point where Miami then rebuilt itself and repainted itself and remodeled itself in the image of the show. And so it became a tourist trap. And as good or bad of a tourist trap it is, a tourist trap is much better than like a drug den. So, have you considered stories for the video? Story S for the video? I'm not sure exactly what that meant. Hey, Lucky Fox. Yeah, this is really off brand for me. I usually don't stream on Sundays, but I just figured I'd do this for a couple hours while I'm writing and see what happens. A lot of cousins living in Miami, also fellow countrymen. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for commenting, Jesus. Yeah, I really want to get down there. It's actually like 3 to 4 hour drive from me. And I've actually driven to Boca Raton, which is actually like less than an hour away from Miami, but I didn't actually went there for a concert. I'm such a nerd. I went there for a Final Fantasy concert. And it was actually a nice time. I did get to see Nobuo Uematsu. Unfortunately, he wasn't feeling well, so he didn't make it. But I got to see them perform Final Fantasy stuff on live and with a live orchestra, which is pretty cool. Yeah, Boca was like less than an hour away from Miami, so it wasn't that far away. But it's big. It's far enough away. Yeah, this whole thing. If you've ever seen Carlito's Way, this guy is basically almost exactly like the lawyer friend in Carlito's Way, down to the whole story. So if you've seen Carlito's Way, this will be a very familiar relationship to you.
I'll go pay him a visit. Take it easy now.
So, in the immortal work, James World, cocaine is a hell of a drug. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a little bit about GTA Vice City Stories. I need to play more of it, but yeah, it's the kind of thing that put a little bit of a damper in that section of the video is that the more I researched it, the more I realized that GTA Vice City is definitely inspired by Miami and Miami Vice, but is less so in the story department. It has very little to do with Miami Vice in the story department. It's mostly to do with it in the aesthetic department. It's a lot more. It was a lot more to Scarface and Carlito's Way. Despite its age, this game actually doesn't look too bad. It's a little bland looking now, but I like the pastel color palette and stuff. Yeah, I actually didn't mind Carlito's Way. It was a little. If you watch Scarface and that back to back, Scarface is obviously, you can tell why Scarface is the hit movie. Scarface has a lot more broad appeal. Carlito's Way is almost like a weird sort of. It's got the same lead actor. It's got a similar premise. Not a very similar like arc, but it's just funny how Carlito is kind of like the light side version of Scarface, whereas Tony Montana is like a complete piece of garbage. Like, he doesn't care. He'll do anything, screw over anybody if he wants to get his way. Whereas Carlito's trying to be basically, despite all odds, trying to redeem himself, but can't really get out of the situation he's in. So obviously the former is a lot more entertaining, but Carlito's Way definitely has some good moments. It just was a little. There are a couple weird scenes. I remember being really distracted in one of the club scenes. I love this shot, by the way, where you see like the sunset, kind of glare from the sunset over here. It's really nice. A couple weird scenes in Carlito's Way where completely inexplicably you see a first person walking shot and like several actors looking at the camera, which is really weird and uncomfortable. I don't know why he did that. If it was like a purposefully, it seemed almost accidental. That's the reason why I didn't really dig it. There have been scenes in movies where you do take first person shot and people look at you and respond to you. Kind of like, imagine at the end of Titanic where she's walking through like the grand stair up the grand stairwell and everybody's like greeting her. That makes sense within the movie, but the way they did it in Carlito's Way just didn't really work for me. Rub out. Which mission was this one? That was a nice little. Is this the racing one or no? Oh no, this is attempting to take out that mansion again. Isn't the guy from Carlito's Way in prison? At the very beginning scene, he's getting out of his prison time by his lawyer friend, and so that kind of creates that sort of debt to his friend, which then comes up later when his friend asks him to do something that he really doesn't want to do. But yeah, I know he gets out of prison. So he just came out of prison and he's trying to like do right in the world, but he ends up getting, again, by like kind of helping out a friend or a relative, he ends up getting pulled into like some really deep shit, basically. That's the kind of premise. Like no matter what he does to try to stop the life of crime, everybody just wants to pull him back in. So that's some really wobbly palm tree right there. Oh, that might be the palm tree wind animation, just hyper sped up. Kind of funny. Oh, the literal actor. Oh God, you know what? I forgot who. I know I knew the actor. Oh, you mean Sean Penn? You're talking about Sean Penn, aren't you? Sean Penn was the lawyer guy. I don't know anything about that unless you're talking about a specific actor in the movie. I don't know of anybody in prison right now, but it could be. Yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting movie. It definitely, I could see why it wasn't as beloved as the other movies. Think of a different movie, maybe. Possible. No, yeah. Just roughly speaking, it's kind of like it's a remorseful Scarface kind of. It kind of unfortunately has a similar arc toward the end where everything goes wrong and things turn out badly, but he was trying to do good in a bad world rather than trying to do bad in a bad world. So you can kind of see it's like the good ending. Well, not really good ending, but he was trying to do a good ending to an otherwise life of crime. But yeah, you're right. Scarface, he was playing a Cuban, whereas he's playing, I believe he was playing an Italian in Carlito definitely is Italian. This is a shot I tried to do where I was driving while pointing out the left side to try to create like a cinematic shot. I'm hoping it'll look okay on the video, but I might have to shoot it again. I was just trying to shoot South Beach from the side, but I'm probably going to hit pedestrians here or a car. Yeah, I'm like hitting telephone poles and cars. It probably won't be a very good shot. Maybe like a snippet, like a second or two. Like that second or two might be okay, except for when I hit the motorcycle. Yeah, that's good. That's like a 5-second shot I can take, maybe. I don't know why I'm driving on the sidewalk and not the road. I'll have to take that shot again. Silver actually saw the Miami Vice 2006 movie in the theaters. That was I was aware of the show. I hadn't really seen much of the show, so the movie was probably my biggest exposure to the franchise. And as a movie, I thought it was okay, but I really didn't like the ending, and neither did Michael Mann. If you read up on the ending of the 2006 movie, it's kind of funny because the movie was both kind of made possible and both kind of ruined by Jamie Foxx, unfortunately. I hope that he's doing better, by the way. I haven't checked up on the Jamie Foxx situation. I heard he was injured. But yeah, basically, I think Jamie Foxx, right around the time he did Ray, he approached Michael Mann. I think he approached Michael Mann, or they were talking, and he wanted to basically star in a reboot of Miami Vice. And that kind of got the whole gang back together. I think they got, well, a lot of the major producers weren't involved, but they got Tony Yurkovich and Michael Mann back together, and they kind of did a reboot of that. And of course, Jamie Foxx played Tubbs in it. But a lot of production problems because Michael Mann's very, very like meticulous and very kind of demanding on his actors, and he wants to create realism. So he was doing like real airplanes, real boats, all that kind of stuff. He wasn't doing sets for any of that. And Jamie Foxx was kind of being a stick in the mud. And he also, during the between like the pitch and production, he had also won an Oscar, so he was being a little bit of a diva, unfortunately. And during shooting in South America, there was actually like an actual gun shootout, essentially. And I think one of the security guards that they'd hired from local security had actually gotten shot. And that freaked Jamie Foxx like the hell out. He was like, I'm not coming back to South America to shoot. Screw this. And so he basically, and being like literally one of the main protagonists, he kind of, unfortunately, they had to at last minute rearrange the ending of the movie and bring it back to the States. And because of that, the main antagonist wasn't really involved, and so they did the whole like white supremacist shootout and everything else. I don't know if that was supposed to be in the original film or not, but essentially there's a very, very weak payoff at the end, and nothing's resolved, and there was never a sequel. So yeah, unfortunately, the 2006 movie, definitely kind of, it's great for like a good 2/3 of the movie. Then it kind of like, well, really, is this how you're gonna end it? So could have been a lot better, and the real ending was never shot. And I actually have a couple of quotes from Michael Mann kind of lamenting that fact, but still worth a watch. It's not a fantastic, great movie, but I still think it's underrated.
Fashion, crime, drugs, everything is on the rise. Absolutely. Of course it is. When I was in Uganda, people were...
Yeah, and Dante, you're 100% right. Miami Vice wasn't exactly prime. Oh, there might be some music here. Wasn't exactly 100% on everybody's radar in 2006, and also if it was, like I'd argue that GTA Vice City was probably the first major success that sort of revitalized the 80s as a setting and as like a nostalgia thing. Like it had been just enough time. This was like what, 2002 or so when Vice City came out. That was almost a full 20 years after. Right, 20 years after, 84, 94, yeah, almost about 18 years after Miami Vice first aired. You essentially got like the first burst of nostalgia for the 80s and that sort of, era of stuff. This was all like way before you got Stranger Things and things like that. And it also kind of led to a revitalization of the 80s style, like retrowave music. So Vice City really kind of rekindled the love of that sort of era. But unfortunately, as much as that might have revitalized the love of that era, Miami Vice 2006 basically almost ignored the entire 80s aesthetic, and both audially and visually. Like it had a little bit of a grit to it. Funnily enough, it was actually shot to kind of look like the 80s. But it was also shot in digital, so it was a very confusing thing. It was shot with digital cameras, but with like a heavy grain and post-production to kind of look a little bit retro, but it was set in modern times, so it definitely feels like mid-2000s, not mid-80s. So it's very confusing, because I would say that perhaps you could probably it might have done better had it embraced the original setting more, because Miami Vice is so heavily tied to the 80s, but who knows? It was trying to modernize things, but in doing so, it kind of lost its identity in a way. So hard to say. Yeah, I would say, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy definitely repopularized a lot of the 70s. I think it was more 70s music than 80s music, if I recall. That's kind of the music that, what's his name? Guardians of the Galaxy guy, James Gunn. Yeah, James Gunn was definitely a fan of that music, and he kind of revitalized that sort of style. But yeah, there was probably, yeah, you're probably right. I'd say like probably 2013 to 2015 would probably have been the best time to revitalize it, and then setting Miami Vice in the 80s. But at that time, Philip Michael Thomas was already retired. Don Johnson was already, kind of up there. So you would have had to recast it, just like they did with the 2006 movie. But I think if you set that in the 80s, but maybe a little bit more grounded than the show was, I think you could probably gotten a pretty big hit with that. But it seemed like at the time, we got a bunch of weird remakes and stuff like that. Like at the time we got Starsky and Hutch with like Owen Wilson. So that was hardly faithful to the original. Was that Owen Wilson or was that Stifler? I get them all mixed up now. Starsky and Hutch was right. No, Starsky and Hutch was Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller. It was the Dukes of Hazzard movie that had Stifler in it. Yeah, they were both freaking weird. But yeah, I think that there's a lesson to be learned in that you can't divorce the source material from the era so much. Like when you divorce the source material from the era, you kind of lose everything about what made the original so good. So yeah, there's something to be said about that. There are rare exceptions to that. I think you could take something completely out of the era that it was made and potentially make something good, but it's very tricky because the era informs so much about it. Like taking Miami Vice, for example, and adding smartphones all of a sudden changes so much. In 2006 even did that. That was like pre-iPhone, but like definitely people had Razr phones and stuff back then. So yeah, that already changed so much about it. Like being able to call somebody if they're in danger anywhere they are, that automatically changes so much about the aesthetic, and then the technology, all that kind of stuff. It's very different. But yeah, if you set Miami Vice even later, like when everybody has smartphones and stuff, that'd be so different too, because then you start to get, I mean, there was always an issue with that where like, how does Crockett and Tubbs stay so undercover when they use the same name? You know, they're undercover names every day. It's there, but it would be even more difficult when you have social media and internet and cell phones, smartphones, cameras, things like that. Really, I didn't play the Starsky and Hutch game. There are some really good video games that came out right around the time of really kind of meh or poor movies. Like, I'm still a Chronicles of Riddick defender, but the Chronicles of Riddick games were great. They were really good. They had no reason to be that good. It was actually incredible. The Mad Max game was also good, even though it did come around at the time of a good movie, but it was not really tied to the release. It wasn't like, okay, you got to release this game at the same time of the movie. It was kind of like a half a year ahead, I think. But not sure what went wrong with Public Enemies. Miami Vice 2006. Yeah, Miami Vice 2006 and Collateral are very similar in terms of tone and style. They both have that kind of green color grading, shot mostly at night. Oops, it looks like at the end of that playlist. Let me get us some more footage here. Let's play some. I'll play some Bad Boys. We do some we could do some GTA 1. I haven't sorted this footage yet, so I don't know where it all is coming from, but we could do some. Yeah, so I actually found out, I didn't realize this because I hadn't played GTA 1 for a long time, but Vice City was in the original game too. Doesn't look like much, but you got palm trees, you got Corvettes and stuff, so it's alright. Game hasn't aged as well as its sequels have. But yeah, no, I actually want to say Collateral is my favorite Michael Mann film. As weird as that is, it's a really, really solid film. I think it's because it has such a very tight focus and scope. Heat, as good as Heat is, you could probably shave off an hour of Heat and it would probably not really suffer because of it. There is so much bloat in Heat. Like I won't spoil it, but one of the characters is almost completely incidental to the plot. And he has like probably 45 minutes of screen time. So yeah, as great as Heat is, and I absolutely love, probably the shootout in Heat is obviously legendary, probably the best shootout in movies. But yeah, there's a lot of bloat in that story. I think you'd probably cut it down to like a good. How long was the original runtime of Heat? I'm just completely, yeah, almost 3 hours. Yeah, I think you could make Heat into a fantastic 2-hour movie, but I think it's a little long as it is. But Collateral's like every minute counts. If it's not plot, if it's character, if it's not character, it's action. It's just like very tight knit. Every scene is necessary. No scene goes on for too long. In fact, it's kind of the perfect length. Oops, sorry. I must have hit my microphone here. It's kind of the perfect length in that, kind of like The Matrix, where it's just shy of being long enough. And that's actually kind of an interesting thing. You can make something just shy of being long enough to a point where it's perfect because you want more of it. That's like the best. That's like the best thing. If you make it just a little bit shorter than you'd like, you want more of it. And I think that's what Matrix did. I think that's what Collateral did, and a lot of other good movies did. Because if you go a little bit too long, you're kind of like, oh, I have my fill. But if you do like a little bit less than you want, it's perfect. I think. As weird as that sounds. Tank location in GTA 2. I haven't done that. I don't know if I've done that. Driving in these games was so difficult. Yeah, the driving is probably what kind of kills these older ones for me. I started with GTA 1 and 2, actually. I played those before GTA 3, so I guess I'm old that way. But I definitely think that the third dimension helped in these games. There's a lot of games where I think third dimension helped and hindered them. I would argue Zelda, I'd argue Metroid as well, but GTA really came into its own with a third dimension. These games were 3D technically, but I'm talking like behind the camera, third person, true 3D models, all that kind of stuff. I'm thinking this game would have been better had they done almost like, if you ever played Take No Prisoners or Mage Slayer, that sort of look where you're constantly your camera angle moves with you. I think that would actually make the game better. The way the static camera kind of actually makes driving super difficult in this game. But I mean, they're good for what they were. They were very good in sandbox games. I've been meaning to watch Hardboiled. I've seen scenes of it, the hospital scene, and I think the bar or whatever it was, club scene. Fantastic shootouts, and the amount of particles on screen are just incredible. Really, really just explosive, literally explosive action. Should probably write some while I'm talking here. So, any other questions? Any other stuff? The way they painted the house was the most 80s thing I've ever seen. Yeah, Tom Cruise was a fantastic villain. I mean, he's played a villain a few times. I haven't seen all of his movies. The ones I can think of are obviously Interview with the Vampire and Collateral. Have you played any other villains? I can't think of any. I haven't seen Magnolia, so I can't speak on that one. I've been meaning to watch Vanilla Sky. I've just heard from everybody it's very weird. Yeah, he's really good because he's very charismatic, and so charismatic villains are always ones you remember the most. It's funny, I would say John Woo is a fantastic action movie director up until the point he came to America. I have not really liked any of his American films, I'm sorry to say. I think it's because he's probably not very good at story. Like, there's so much of Face Off that is just kind of noise and doesn't need to be there. Mission Impossible 2, I think, is probably probably the weakest of the entire series. Shootouts were cool, but then it's like, okay, I'm going to do this long, drawn-out, dialogue-free scene and then have a splash of doves flying someplace, and that means something. Just kind of... He's like the... I was about to say he's the opposite of Ang Lee. I've not really seen many great Ang Lee films since... for a long time, actually, but... yeah, maybe you could get John Woo and Ang Lee to work together and make a fantastic film. Ang Lee could do all the emotional scenes. John Woo could do all the shootouts. There you go. I don't know if I've seen Hard Target. Oh yeah, that's another one of the Van Damme movies I need to see. I think I watched a review on Hard Target. I need to watch it sometime. Van Damme did a lot of films. You forget how many films Van Damme did back in the 90s. Yeah, Tom Cruise is killing it. Most actors would like retire at his age, but he's like still jumping out of planes and trains and automobiles and doing crazy stuff. That guy is crazy dedicated. And it's funny is he comes from like one of the most, oh, I guess I got into a car that's about to blow up. That's funny. He comes from like a lot of action stars came from like, you know, oh, he was a, you know, kung fu instructor, or, oh, you know, he did this and that, or he was a bouncer or whatever. Tom Cruise was like going to be a pastor, and then he got into drama school and stuff like that. He comes from like the most tame background, but he ends up doing the craziest stuff in his movies. But I think his success, like, if you watch not Tom Cruise, you watch Top Gun 1 and 2, you'll notice how much of a better actor he is now. But as much as I'm a fan of his, I don't think he's like the greatest actor necessarily, but he's one of the most dedicated action stars you could ever find. Like he puts so much into the movies he makes. He's like produces them, he gets people together, he comes up with this idea, and he's constantly pushing practical effects, production, performance, and he understands what people want, which is really important nowadays, because it seems like every studio right now is trying their hardest not to give people what they want, which is kind of backwards and weird and dumb, but he understands what makes a solid Hollywood movie experience that people will enjoy and talk to their friends about. And just that insight and the power and the kind of weight he can kind of throw around to make those things happen is really kind of, like I said, kind of saving Hollywood. You know, I don't think Mission Impossible is the most insightful commentary on the world today, or Tom Cruise, or not Tom Cruise, I keep mixing that up. Top Gun isn't the most exceptionally ambitious story ever told, but it's a really solid, simple story, and it has incredible visual, audio-visual performances and production and practical sets and everything like that. So the fact that they actually got people in the jets to act while being flown around at, you know, supersonic speeds is kind of incredible. You don't really see that. He's showing things you haven't seen before, which is awesome. As you can see, I'm a fantastic driver. If you ever want to catch an Uber, I'm happy to oblige. Speech to text doing no favors. I didn't know you could do that on YouTube. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, he is kind of one of the last few movie stars. It's rare when you can have an actor essentially create, or like an actor will basically materialize a movie, like a top-selling movie out of nothing. It used to be that an actor will basically like, I want to do a Robin Hood movie. You know, 2 years later, Robin Hood movie, top of the box office. But you don't really see that so much anymore. You have to find, you see directors that do that kind of. You see producers, you see studios, continuing franchises, but like name another actor who can just kind of like materialize a top-selling movie that out of like willpower alone, basically. I mean, him and Macquarie are really kind of like a dream team at this point. They've been making some really great films recently. But yeah, like as much as a big name, not Liam Hemsworth, but the other Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth is, it doesn't, I don't think he would have the same, he doesn't have the same energy of being able to like, I want to create a blah movie. He got famous because of his role on Thor, and I really like the Extraction movies. I think they're great, but that isn't just him. That's like, who did Extraction, by the way? I don't even know who did that. Sam Hargrave. Oh, he's a stuntman. Oh, right. He was on, wasn't he one of the guys who worked on Oh my god, I forgot that they did a terrible Saint reboot. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, so he's been around. Not exactly... Oh, one of the Russos. One of the Russo brothers? Oh, I didn't know the Russo brothers were involved in Extraction. That's interesting. Writing, which, you know, wasn't insanely good, but I thought that they had some guys from, yeah, Atomic Blonde. They really didn't have anybody. I could have swore that they had somebody from the John Wick movies in that. I guess am I making that up? Guess not. I think they worked with somebody who worked on John Wick or something, but definitely a stunt-driven movie for sure. Yeah, I know exactly that Anthony Mackie rant on stage is a great video. I just unfortunately don't think that Anthony Mackie is really living by that standard. He's still just taking jobs, and he's taking parts that are horribly written after reading the script and everything like that. But his whole rant about how movies are basically just shadows and repeats of themselves. And what's the saddest thing about that whole rant, I recommend looking it up on YouTube sometime. It's a really interesting watch. Just Anthony Mackie explains why Hollywood movies are bad or something like that. Is that when he says, he's bringing up a negative example. He brings up Stranger Things and everybody cheers. They're like, yeah, Stranger Things. And he's like, that's just the Goonies. Like he was bringing up a negative example of why modern movies and modern shows aren't as good as they were. And I don't think he's necessarily claiming that Stranger Things is bad. He's just saying how it's basically a carbon copy of the Goonies. But the problem is that the whole crowd cheers when he brings up what he thinks is like, this is an example of how movies and shows are just carbon copies of things we did in the 80s. And everybody cheers. That kind of shows you where we're at. We're like, okay, as much as you're making some sense, people aren't really listening. So, yeah. You can make a fun, not particularly brilliant Hollywood movie without being just a repeat of everything that's been done in the last 50 years. Yeah, it is an interesting point that social media is kind of... Movie stars have this like mystique that very few people can ever get. Where you think that they're like the most brilliant, talented people in the world, directors, producers, writers, and stuff like that. Oh my God, you're so incredibly talented and smart, and how could anyone be this cool? You're like you're gods among men kind of thing, right? Until they open their mouth on social media and you realize they're just as vapid and stupid as everybody else. So some people are surprisingly insightful. I follow a couple people that are actually kind of interesting, but I'd say the smartest, the most insightful creators in Hollywood probably don't have social media. Kind of funny. All right, that's my GTA 1 playlist. What are some other things? I could do some Hotline Miami. I was recording some Beat Cop, but I was actually a little disappointed by Beat Cop. I wonder, yeah. So here's the trailer of Beat Cop, and let me know like what you think. This is like one of the greatest like pixel art game trailers I've seen. They've got so many references, and yeah, it's like it looks stylish. Like, oh man, it's Columbo, yeah, Columbo, and then I think they've got Rocket and Tubbs. They got they got Tom Selleck, Crockett and Tubbs. Yeah, this is awesome. This is super cool, right? And I'll show you the actual game in a second. Doesn't this make you want to pay all that bloody money for this game? A murder mystery. Cops. Oh my God. What happened? Who did it? He lays down the law. And the problem with this game, and especially the marketing material, it talks about how, you're sexier than Crockett. You're more badass than Dirty Harry and all this kind of stuff, right? And here's the actual game. Write a parking ticket. You're essentially framed for murder, as like a homicide detective, but that's the backstory. As soon as you start the game, you're the most tedious police officer who's ever lived, and you're purposefully given like very, very boring activities, and there's a lot of dialogue, and it's basically a beat cop simulator, which is exactly what it should have been advertised as, but they really they oversold the game. This should have been sold as like a tedium simulator in a fun way. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's what it is. But it was sold as like you're gonna be like Sonny Crockett, right? But you're not. You write parking tickets. You handle annoying people's complaints. You check in on people. Occasionally, you can like run after somebody and arrest them. But it's very, very. It's not fantasized very much. It's very, very low level policing. Unfortunately, I was really looking forward to this game. I may not even mention it because unfortunately I felt that the advertising was a little bit deceptive for the game. Like 99% of it is walking around on this one street, by the way, one street, walking back and forth on the street and finding somebody who's like parking wrong or shoplifting or whatever. It's not nearly as exciting as it should have been. On the other hand, I actually really liked Slipstream. It's a very, very simple game, but it's basically like a modernized but kind of retro feel Outrun. But it runs at like 4K, 120 FPS, all that kind of stuff. So it's actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Definitely nothing incredible in terms of racing mechanics or whatever, but I just like the aesthetic. It's got a nice visual style. Yeah, I'll play this in the background for a bit. My volume up. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, no, the budgets are getting out of control. I don't know if many people reported this, but I looked at the latest Indiana Jones movie, and I took the budget that they proposed for the production only, and then I took the production budgets of all the previous Indiana Jones movies, the original trilogy, the first 3 movies. And then I calculated the year it was made, and then put it into an inflation calculator today. And I calculated that all 3 of the original Indy movies were about 260 mil combined. And the latest Indiana Jones film was like $290 million alone. So they spent more money making the new Indiana Jones movie than all 3 of the original movies combined, even with inflation, which is absolutely insane and should never ever be that way. Especially considering just the material, the age of the actors and everything like that. You're never going to beat the original, so why spend 3 times as much for them? In fact, you could probably, I think Raiders was the cheapest of the 3. I think they might have progressively gotten more expensive, actually, 1, 2, and 3. But even considering that, they were still less than a third of the new movie each. And then we could take into marketing. I always heard that marketing was basically, you basically double the production budget for marketing, but now I've been hearing that basically take the production budget, just times 1.5, and you got roughly what they spent on the movie. But with all the marketing and tie-ins and stuff like that now, I would say that there's probably, might be a little bit more than that, but yeah, it's a bit crazy how much they're spending on movies nowadays. This is a fun little film, a fun little game here, though. It's very much like a very simple Outrun, but I just like how they use like a 3D plane for the actual track, and then but they still use sprites for all the cars and all of the environments, so it has like a retro feel, but it plays a lot smoother. It's kind of fun. Again, it's very simple, but I had a bit of fun playing with it. And I think you can do kind of like a nearly endless mode where you just kind of drive and music, and it's just it's a vibe game. It's not anything serious. Hey, Arby, I didn't notice you in here. Yeah, early 2010s new retrowave is definitely featuring in the video. Yeah, I would say that I think the spark of that was probably GTA Vice City. That kind of got a newer generation interested in the 80s again. And then you could see kind of like the late 2000s, you started to see like the retrowave and outrun aesthetic kind of come back with synthwave music and everything like that. And then yeah, Drive kind of cemented that. Drive was really kind of a impetus to kind of re-popularize that sort of music style and aesthetic and everything like that. I'm trying to kind of identify what that movement is. People call it outrun, synthwave. Synthwave is more of a music style, but in the movies, like basically every single Nicholas Refn. Oh, I completely forgot his name. Nicholas Refn, Winding Refn. Yeah, Nicholas Winding Refn's. All of his movies are kind of the same in terms of like the style, and I'm trying to identify that. I kind of isolated. It's like neon noir, not neo noir, which kind of fits. I need to watch the rest of his movies, and I've heard he's done a couple kind of cool shows recently, so I'll have to check those out. But I love the visuals of all his films; are great. I think Drive was really good. Only God Forgives is a very tough watch, and it wasn't the right movie to make after Drive, but you know, you can respect it. Neon Demon I heard was better than Only God Forgives, but I haven't watched all his films yet, and I think he did do a couple shows recently, but they have like the very, very bright neon colors and accenting darkness and everything, so visual style is very, very strong in those films. New retrowave, but why would it be new retrowave though? Isn't retrowave already enough? Because retro already assumes that you're bringing something old back. I don't know. Genres are weird. I get in tons of arguments of people talking about what's cyberpunk, what's not cyberpunk. People are like, "Why don't you mention Fallout? Fallout's cyberpunk. Mad Max is cyberpunk." And you're like, well, "I don't know what you're talking about." But yeah, retrowave, synthwave, outrun. I don't really know why outrun gets as much credit as it does, because outrun's basically driving on the beach, but I guess it's just that kind of style of just driving down the highway with that sort of music, and it definitely kind of helped with the, you know, Ferrari, like the white or red Ferrari driving down the road. But another big inspiration of that was the VHS logo idents at the beginning of VHS tapes. Some of those are like straight out of your outrun stuff is like straight out of that. I got some of the OG outrun as well. So let's play some of that. I never played Outrun growing up, but I played a lot of the kind of Outrun likes, like a Rad Racer and stuff. Yeah, Nicholas Winding Refn is definitely, he kind of had the sort of, what would that be? Would it be the Orson Welles curse, or the M. Night Shyamalan curse, where basically you start really strong and then you never can quite surpass that. But yeah, identifying all this stuff is kind of tough. Giving it names, and also over the years I've kind of overthought my scripts more and more, because I'm constantly trying to rebut and predict what people will argue against it. So you try to like preface things and explain things and define your own terms so that people don't just tear your arguments apart. They will anyway, but you know, you try to be prepared, because unfortunately you can't change your statement. Your statement is solid. You can never replace your YouTube video. It's like in stone, unless you want to delete it and start over. But at the same time, whenever you get into arguments online, people will constantly change their goalposts. They'll constantly say, "Oh, well, I actually meant this. Oh, I actually meant this." Or actually, what about that? And you're like, that wasn't your original argument. That was something completely different. So you're kind of fighting with one arm behind your back. And unfortunately, when you put a video up, especially if it takes off, you then have 10,000 people arguing against you. Whereas everyone who's arguing with you is just doing a one-on-one. You're basically in a boxing ring with your fists up, and then 10,000 people enter the ring, all trying to punch you at the same time. So it can be pretty tough sometimes. That's if you care. Most YouTubers probably don't care at all, but I try to at least approach my topics with a level of research. Let's do some Hotline. Hotline Miami. Don't know if any of these songs are. Some of these songs may get copyright struck. I'm not sure. Hopefully none of them. I haven't seen Valhalla Rising. That's like the weirdest movie out of all of his ones, because he normally does like these kind of neon lit detective or like murder mystery movies, and then that one's just like a Roman period piece or something, or Nordic period piece, which is kind of funny, kind of out of left field for him. But I'd be curious to see what he does with a different setting, because he does seem to kind of been typeset a little bit with his current string of movies. This has been a lot of fun. I've not really written much, unfortunately, but I can change that. Oh no. This game made quite a big splash. So you see so many games that kind of followed suit after this game, and all it was basically, you could argue it's almost like a GTA just done. GTA 1-2 is just done with insta kills and better combat mechanics. But yeah, no, this unlocked just somebody's idea of what their game should be. Just unlocked this kind of mini genre, which really took off. Get a little frustrating when you feel like you hit them before they hit you, or you forget to drop something, or somebody shoots you off screen. That's probably the most frustrating thing, is when they shoot you off screen. But otherwise, pretty fun time. Oh yeah, I thought I saw that Mads Mikkelsen was in that. I remember seeing Mads Mikkelsen in. Oh yeah, no, I think he actually worked with Mads Mikkelsen early in his career, back in the '90s, I think. But I remember seeing Mads Mikkelsen in. What was it? Clash of the Titans, the remake, or the reboot, whatever. Clash of the Titans. And I remember thinking those movies were really kind of not super exciting and could have been so much better. But also, I remember seeing Mads Mikkelsen and thinking, man, this guy is way too good for this material. We should really see more of this guy. And then like 10 years later, he's super famous and he's in everything. I'm glad it worked out for him, though. It can take a really long time for somebody's career to take off. I remember seeing, was it Titus Welliver, I think? Was it Titus? The guy who plays Bosch. Welliver, yeah. He was in shows and stuff for probably like 2 decades before he got a big break with Bosch. Lots of actors take a long time for their big break. It's actually kind of sad how some people, they like start in their 20s and don't get famous until their 40s. It takes a long time sometimes to break into showbiz. I'd like to turn the music up a little bit. I'm just not sure how much of it is copyrighted. It must suck to stream this game, because they did a combination of, I don't know if they did, I think they did a couple original tracks for the game, but a lot of it is kind of like licensed, so I'm not sure what the state of it is on YouTube, but yeah. Neon noir, how you'd even define that. A lot of genres are just mostly kind of more just descriptive of the style, than like the visual style, than the actual content of the media. But was accused of something. That might have been that Nicholas Refn movie that I remember. 90s show. He made like a couple movies, I think, in the 90s, and I think Pusher. Was it Pusher? Pusher 1 and 2, I think, had Mads in it, yeah. Or they have three of them. There are three of them that had Mads Mikkelsen in them. Yeah, that's probably how he got into showbiz, and then eventually took off in the States. Most people know him as Hannibal, but I've not really seen much of that show. I've heard it's good. I don't know. I feel like I have a controversial viewpoint of Hannibal Lecter, but I feel like he's best as a side character. I think the hyper focus on Hannibal Lecter as a character, I think is kind of a mistake. I think he's best as a really interesting side character, kind of like a show stealer. Like I love Manhunter. I saw Manhunter for the first time last year. I think it was a great movie. I like Silence of the Lambs. I like Manhunter. I think they focused a little bit too much on him for the Red Dragon movie by what's that guy? The guy who made kind of mad movies. They really didn't pick a very good, Brett Ratner. Ugh, bad choice for that movie. Wasn't a terrible movie, and I thought there were some good performances in it. But Brett Ratner is not the kind of thriller or pseudo horror gore fest movie director you want for that. I'd actually prefer Manhunter over Red Dragon, even though it's very 80s. I think that it kind of fits the style really well. There's some really cool, almost like David Lynchian scenes in Manhunter that I really enjoyed. Very dreamy, and I don't know how true it is to the books, but the script in both, especially Manhunter, which was the first adaptation of the Hannibal Lecter kind of series, was very dreamy. Like you weren't quite sure if they were imagining things or this was actually happening. Like there's a lot of scenes there that I maybe it's just headcanon, but I actually almost interpret as not actually happening. Oh yeah, Drive, Hotline Miami, and Blood Dragon made up most of my playlist in 2013. They're great soundtracks. Absolutely stellar. Hey Roger, thanks for swinging by. I'm not playing right now. This is a recording of my footage from Hotline Miami. I'm just playing footage as I'm trying to write, but I'm realizing that live streaming while writing is not really working out. But it's good to bounce ideas off people. Yeah, Blood Dragon is great. Who did actually voice Blood Dragon? I always think it's like a really bad Michael Biehn impression, but it might actually be Michael Biehn, isn't it? Did he actually did the voice in there, right? Okay, yeah. But Michael Biehn does he does an impression, kind of like a poor impression of his past characters, which kind of makes it better. He's just like, we've got to destroy the so-and-so. And he just kind of sounds like overly dramatic and kind of poor. I don't know. I think it's the right amount of cheese for that game, because it is a game called Blood Dragon and has like laser dragons and all that kind of stuff. It's basically a G.I. Joe plot. Yeah, I thought I knew it was supposed to sound like Michael Biehn. I just didn't realize if he actually did it or not. It sounds like somebody doing an impression of Michael Biehn, but it is actually Michael Biehn. It's a Michael Biehn doing an impression of himself, kind of, if that's possible. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the interviews with Michael Caine. He's like, "Oi, I got an impression of myself. I'm Michael Caine." He just kind of does like the typical bad impression of himself, but as himself. Yeah, I remember I played a bit of Hotline Miami 2, and it just didn't quite have the same magic. It wasn't bad at all. It didn't really introduce anything substantially better. I think it did dual wielding. I think that was like the big selling point, but it just wasn't enough, I guess, to stand out. I'm wondering how the sales were. I probably didn't do nearly as well as the first game. It's kind of too bad. I wonder what the developer's up to. Hotline Miami developer. They've made a lot of little games, and I know they make like a lot of just kind of offbeat stuff. He's made a lot of stuff. A lot of little games here and there. Oh, he's friends with Derek Yu. I remember playing Derek Yu's really early games. He did Splunky. I played his very first game back in 2002. That was awesome. Eternal Daughter. He did. He was working. The guy who created Splunky was originally working on games using the same video game production development program that I was using, and yeah, he made some really good stuff. He was obviously way more talented than most other people in that community at the time. It's a nice little touch with that. If you notice, as you walk up the stairs, your character keeps on moving while the level is replaced, but it's seamless. It's a really nice little effect. Plus, my Hotline Miami section is ridiculously small. How would you describe Hotline Miami? About this, Hotline Miami took on the cocaine field frenzy of action films set in the 80s with its what's a word for addictive, hypnotic and addictive synth soundtrack contrasted with occasional bouts of this guy was tough. He's got like a guy has like a bulletproof vest on and is incredibly difficult to take down. It's like point blank several times. He doesn't budge. Just like so many shotgun blasts. Okay, I guess he takes like 6 shotgun blasts. He could barely finish 2 levels of this game. I would not do well as a psychopath killer. Well, that's a good thing, I guess. I think it's just impossible for anybody to follow Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, I mean, the character's been played by others before and after him. I never watched the prequels that much. I know they made some like prequel Hannibal movie, possibly 2. I mean, Red Dragon is technically a prequel as well, but the show kind of like took a different angle on him, and I think it's perfectly fine to have different actors on him. But he is kind of like the Yul Brynner of Hannibal in that everybody just kind of associates the character with him now. But honestly, I think that I'm totally forgetting his name. The Scottish actor who plays in Succession now, Brian Cox. I think Brian Cox's portrayal of him was actually really good. Anthony Hopkins is obviously really, really good as Hannibal, but I think the difference is somebody said it once that was kind of resonating with me, was that Brian Cox actually researched real life serial killers. Like he modeled his version of Hannibal Lecter after like an actual Scottish serial killer, I think, and he was astounded at how normal the guy seemed. You could have full-on conversations with him, and he'd actually be kind of quirky or not quirky, but like he'd actually be kind of reasonable and lurid, but he also committed some of the most heinous things you could ever imagine. So he kind of portrayed him as a lot more not human, but a lot more relatable, I guess. Like he was actually kind of mildly charming and kind of funny. Not really funny, but like he was personable. Whereas Anthony Hopkins definitely seems like a psychopath when he talks about eating people with fava beans and stuff like that. So he's very theatrical. Somebody said that really well. Like Anthony Hopkins is a very theatrical portrayal of Hannibal, whereas like if he spoke that way and got away with murder that many years, that's kind of ridiculous. Like he probably would have come off as pretty normal up until the point where he's eating you. You know, that's the kind of creepy thing about a realistic portrayal is that you could see somebody like that in real life. Like I've actually, not too many times, but I've actually known of people or been associated with people, or at least been like neighbors with somebody who ended up doing something beyond comprehension horrific. And when you talk to them when you see them on the street, you don't think that they're that unnormal, but just that the sort of contrast of, hey, this seems like somebody who would live next door, to what they did is kind of horrifying, in that it could happen to anybody. That's kind of what I get, at least. But obviously people are a lot more entertained by the Anthony Hopkins portrayal than Brian Cox's portrayal. But I think that Brian Cox's portrayal is probably more realistic, in that somebody like that could exist in the world. Yeah, I haven't watched the one with Julianne Moore. I've heard that one was kind of the roughest. I've only seen Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Manhunter, and bits and pieces of the show. Not too much of the show yet. He's eating him, then he's going to eat us. Oh my god. Now that would make a really good Hannibal movie. Well, this game got canceled for just because of the violence. I mean, welcome to Call of Duty. I don't know. You know, they have some kind of odd subject material in some of the levels, but they have content warnings and stuff before now. Maybe those were added after. I don't know. I figure that if it serves a story and isn't just complete, if it isn't just like celebrating the violence and the shock value itself, I think if you have a mature story and a M for mature rating, you should be able to pretty much do whatever you want. You could argue that putting this kind of activity in the player's control is glorifying it, but that would also be saying like every single movie, you know, be it Godfather, be it Hannibal, be it whatever, is glorifying the things that are portrayed on screen. You can portray things you can portray things in a very grisly format without endorsing it. I don't know. Guess I'm old school, but I think you should be able to portray anything. Just about. Oh, The Hunt. I've heard that's really good. Yeah, Silver Moose has a comment from a while back. Yeah, I never saw The Hunt, but I need to add that to my list of movies to watch. Just don't really have a centralized place to watch movies, or to look at movies I want to watch. God, that like nearly deafened me when that thing went off. I know it's supposed to be deafening, but guy comes at you with a bomb vest, and yeah, it's very, very loud. The music turned off. Oh, it's just quiet music. Okay. Yeah, oh, it's good stuff. There's just so much of this era that was so great. Like the mid 2000s kind of synth revolution was so fun, with like Kavinsky and all that stuff. Like Kavinsky definitely took the sort of, let me turn this down again because that might be really, really loud and open the door again. But the whole Kavinsky sort of revival, that sort of heavy synth music and Hotline Miami, everything like that. For a while, it was kind of considered synth, yeah, kind of meh. Let's do straight guitar or straight bass, and yeah, that's kind of not really rock or not really that's retro. But I see these kind of games and shows and movies kind of showed you what we're missing. I don't remember exactly how the game ends. I don't even know if I got to the end, but yeah, you begin to think that you're not all there. You start to see like visions, and it's very David Lynchian in that, you know, things start to get pretty nightmarish, and you start questioning things, and people that you work for may not be who they say they are, and or might not even exist, and so yeah, it gets pretty dark. Shotgun's so good, but those two shell shotguns are not really good to rely on, I noticed. Honestly, doors are probably like the unsung hero of this game. You can get so many good entrances by just knocking a door open. Yeah, good times though. Probably switch to something else though. Got GTA 2, GTA 3. GTA 2, pretty good. I'd show you the Miami Vice game. I recorded quite a bit of footage for Miami Vice 2004 and 2006. I don't think this game has any copyrighted music outside of the main menu, maybe. This is the 2004 game. This was supposed to be basically a creation of the 1980s show. Kind of like... It's kind of like what was that one game that kind of invented the Gears of War kill switch? Yeah, kill switch kind of innovated that sort of cover shooter thing. But funnily enough, what's it? Kill switch was 2003. This game was 2004. There's the famous sound effect. And then they did another Miami Vice game based on the movie reboot in 2006, and it was actually a few months before Gears of War, so they didn't perfect it, but they did a... I think the 2006 game did a pretty good job with the cover shooter.
There's nowhere left to run. Jesus, Tubbs. You okay? Not sure. Ask me again when my ear...
That's funny, they didn't put a comma there, so it sounded like his name was Jesus Tubbs. Yeah, little jank. This is also the PC version. I think this is the PC version, unless this was the game. I'm trying to remember now. Was this the PC version or was this the Xbox version? I don't remember now, but I'll have to dig up. I think I wasn't able to get the version I wanted to working properly, so I ended up playing a different version. Remember that? And these games are just really hard to emulate and are really hard to get working on PC. And PC versions are almost always the hardest ones to get working, actually. Just due to video drivers and operating systems and all that kind of stuff.
Showtime.
And they had a fairly poor imitations of all the actors. Like, the voice doesn't sound too bad for the character model, but it sounds nothing like Don Johnson. And Tubbs is just kind of weird. Tubbs is kind of interesting because Philip Michael Thomas is very kind of theatrical. He started out in like the singing and theater and stuff like that, so he doesn't sound really like the typical I don't know, they kind of use like a stereotypical sort of voice for Tubbs here, which doesn't sound anything like Philip Michael Thomas. Philip Michael Thomas kind of had like a sort of musical way of speaking, and that doesn't really reflect in this game. Kind of cool that you can switch between Crockett and Tubbs in this game, though. Some okay. A couple different guns. Tubbs has like an infinitely reloadable sawed-off shotgun, which totally wouldn't be a thing in a police force. But you can pick up other guns along the way. Crockett has his handgun. Yeah, the voice acting's pretty helpful. Oh yeah, I play a lot of Command and Conquer. Good games. I think this must be. Yeah, this is before the other. Let's go to another one.
Miss Sylvia Ortega?
Yes? Who are you?
Police.
I'm not in any kind of trouble, officers?
Let's see, Miss Ortega.
What do you mean?
Tell me, what do you know about your father's business?
My father?
Is that another typo?
What do you mean?
Tell me, what do you
Yeah, there's no apostrophe there. I'm sorry, I'm just really anal about that kind of stuff. I noticed that right away. Even though I have typos in my stuff, it's just whenever I watch something, I'm like, is that a typo?
Your father's business?
My father? Does this have something to do with my father? Is he alright?
Well,
Reminds me of that one scene in what was it called? Naked Gun, where it's like, is this some kind of bust? And it's like, oh, it's very nice.
Yes, who is it?
Very stereotypical. The kind of this is actually a very similar. I'm going to go in a little bit of a detour, but this scenario in the 2004 game, they modeled. Let me find him again.
Yes, who is it?
This guy. Notice the kind of lavender shirt, and specifically, I think when you see him earlier or later, you see a close up of his sunglasses. I think he was in the last game clip as well, or was that battle in the office, wherever it was? Is it up here? Or, no, that was the previous clip.
There's nowhere.
Yeah, this guy. He was modeled after a specific antagonist in the two-parter episode. I want to say, was that Golden Triangle, or no? That was I have the clip. Let me pull it up here. I won't be able to play it because I don't know how anal they're going to be about playing the show. Oh boy, which episode was that? It was, I think it was a two-parter in season 1. Calderon. Was it the Calderon episode? No, that was when they went to. No, that wasn't it. I could have swore. Was it the hit list? It might have been the hit list. Yeah, it's this guy, I think. Wife. This guy was like actually pretty badass, a pretty good villain. Or the opening. Just a guy that looked like him? No, it was, yeah, no, it's this guy. It's a great theme song too. If I play it in like super slow motion. But this guy's got the yellow glasses. I think he poses as a driver. And let me skip forward a little bit. He's waiting for his mark to come in, and I think he pulls up. Yeah, he like they arrive and he pulls up, and he's like actually like a friendly guy. I forget where he's supposed to be from, but he's actually like a crazy talented and super highly efficient gun for hire. He's like a contract killer, and so I'm gonna have to play it and like, oh man, that's a Spasfell. That's cool. That would not do that to that car though. But yeah, he's pretty awesome, and he's just kind of his look about him. He's just got the curly mop, unsuspecting look, just has those yellow glasses. It's an interesting look for an antagonist. He's pretty formidable. He actually is probably one of the people in the show that gets closest to killing their protagonists in the show. He gets really close to taking them out. It's kind of cool. That perm, yeah. It was the look of the time, man. But yeah, he just has a really kind of cool on-screen. Despite his kind of goofy look, he has a cool on-screen presence. This guy totally bites it, I think. It's like, yeah, no, I don't got anything. Bam, bam, bam. That is fast. I'm at like 0.25 speed or something. Pause it here for a second. I don't have any sort of copyright protection up, so I'm just gonna pause it. I'm commenting. This is 100% fair use. Commenting, not replacing the entire episode. I have it on mute and everything. Oh man, he's got a little mustache. That's funny. Everybody talks about how the 80s is so outdated, but look at all these perms, look at all these like thin mustaches and stuff. Tell me this isn't all coming back. People got the mop tops and everything. Yeah, look at that. How many frames? That's like maybe 10 frames, and he's got the gun out and he's firing it. That's a pretty good move. Those look like real blanks too. That would have been a pretty tough stunt to pull off. I don't know, maybe they sped the footage up, but I'm impressed by that. That's pretty good. And I'm gonna get back to gameplay so I don't get the stream taken down. Game over. Yeah, I like that. The two-parter episodes in this show were probably some of the best. There's a couple one-off episodes like Out Where the Buses Don't Run is probably the best episode in this show, just because it has such an interesting sort of arc to it. Let's see, we did some Hotline. Let's see. Do some Driver for a bit. Let's see. Play it. Excellent. Sped it up a little bit. We're playing the original Driver. That was a lot of fun. This is a lot more kind of bullet, French Connection. What was the other? Vanishing Point era, though. This is more a 70s style. Even though you do go to Miami here. I might mention it briefly in the episode, but this is a lot more inspired by the kind of classic 70s driving movies, though. It may also be slightly soundtrack might kind of sound like a porno too, but it's a lot of fun. Gotta love that wah wah guitar. Let's see. Ice Ice Baby. Good times. The Driver games were actually doing so well that they could have actually overtaken the GTA thing. The game that really kind of took GTA head on was, I think it was Driver 3, and unfortunately that game didn't turn out to be very good, but it was absolutely could have been a contender to be a full-on GTA competitor. It kind of, well, they did a couple Driver games after that, but it kind of died out, unfortunately. Ironically, too, because I think Driver had a much better car handling than GTA did early on, especially. Yeah, it's sort of like a sway and momentum to your driving. Yeah, Driver games are pretty fun. I heard so many great things about Driver San Francisco, but I couldn't really get into it. I don't know why. I like the mechanic of being able to hop between different drivers and cars and stuff, but it just didn't really take off for me. French taxi games. Yeah, I remember there were a couple European set taxi games. I didn't really play them. I only played Crazy Taxi a little bit on Dreamcast and obviously Driver, GTA, things like that. A little bit of Saints Row. Really? That's all you had to do? I remember the damage models not really being very compelling in this one. They definitely did car damage. I did like when you took a really big turn that your hubcap would pop off, but the damage modeling on the car when you rammed him did not really seem very impactful at all. You mostly just rubbed him until he finally gave up. Yeah, this is almost like straight out of Bullet, though, if you watch that one scene of Bullet. I think it's also set in San Francisco, isn't it? Could be wrong about that. It's a great chase scene, though. Totally shows that you can do a great high tension scene without having just over the top ridiculousness, like in every single Fast and the Furious movie now. Just had a really good sense of tension and an incredible sense of realism. You just felt like you're actually there in the car with people. Really good job. I think he lost his mind whenever he saw bullet holes. Pretty good sense of speed too. I don't really feel like you're going 100 miles per hour, but another game I used to play. Oh man, I used to play that a lot. Midtime Madness. Anyone else play that? That's all right. I'm thinking of this one word here, but I'm not thinking of it. Let's see. Kind of cool when you have the dynamic lighting a little bit. It's still not great here because this is, you know, early 2000s, possibly 99 actually. When did Driver come out? The original Driver might have been 99 actually. Yeah, the original Driver was 99. But considering this was pretty early, like a year after Unreal maybe, a year or two after Unreal, it was pretty good overall. But yeah, not super compelling lighting or anything. Adding modern lighting to games really enhances a lot. Like I bet if you took this exact game and put it into ray tracing with proper lighting, it'd probably look considerably better. Yeah. Daytime was just very, very flat ambient lighting. This has a little bit of dynamic lighting to it, but you can tell. Yeah, if you go back, like you can tell the headlights, that's just like a decal. That's not even lit. That's just a decal. So like this is really early on. There is a very, very slight, yeah, you see this, like there's a very, very slight bit of, I can't tell if that's baked in. It might be baked in lighting, but there's a very slight amount of lighting and it does light up the vehicles just a tiny bit. But obviously it's lacking compared to modern games. Yeah, I don't know if, I don't know if I ever bought Driver. I think I just played the demo and I think it had a time limit or whatever, a couple limited chases, but I never really played the full game until years later, but I remember being has had a really good the game that really saved itself by having good driving handling, which kind of seems obvious, but it really felt like a good a realistic weight to your car when you turned around. Honestly, the only other game that I can think of that kind of had that sort of weightiness, I would say, is probably GTA 4. I always felt that your car was a bit, your car and wheels were a bit more glued to the ground in GTA 5. You didn't really feel like you had that sway as much. Ramming speed. Hey, Jason, it's been a long time, man. Thanks for the donation, man. I appreciate it. That's right, ramming speed. If you could like take the original driver, update the lighting, and just add better damage modeling. Like it's got a little bit. You could tell this car is bent up a little bit. But better damage modeling, I think that would do wonders. Because the core game is a lot of fun. Yeah. It is bent up a little bit, I think. Yeah, just a tiny bit. Yeah, obviously, Grand Theft Auto. I'd probably say Grand Theft Auto 4 is probably the peak of this kind of thing, with the very heavy, weighty driving, and then the damage modeling. That game was incredible. Probably the best out of any game, I would say, because even GTA 5 was kind of a step down in terms of damage modeling and realism and stuff. Oh, you know what? Yeah, no, his car's actually pretty banged up. It just, I guess it's not quite as dramatic as the GTA games. GTA games, like you bump into something and your hood flies off. It's a bit more dramatic, whereas this is a bit more subtle. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good damage modeling. Yeah, people get down on GTA 4's boat driving. Do I have any GTA 4 clips? I'll have to find it. I think I mentioned GTA 3. I think I don't mention GTA 4 because I was focused on Vice City. So I don't think I go past GTA Vice City. Yeah, comparatively, GTA 3 is a little, I don't know if flat is the right word, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's just a little bit more like, you can see exactly when you hit the right on your keyboard. It's like, it's just very, very stiff. It's a lot stiffer, I think. I don't have any GTA 4 gameplay offhand, I don't think, right now. But yeah, it's just a little more stiff. Like when you're turning, you don't notice the truck doesn't like kind of tilt over, or the wheels and the chassis are basically glued together. They're just like, if I'm turning, and then I'm done turning. Whereas driver had like kind of a bounciness, almost like a springiness to the driving, and just gave a lot of weight to it. I'm running out of words to describe it, but basically, yeah, you just see how stiff that is. Like it turns the entire model right or left. Whereas in reality, you're actually on suspension, so your wheels will turn, but the chassis has to kind of like bounce its way out based on your suspension. So they didn't quite have the physics down quite well. They might have overdone it in GTA 4, but I think they kind of overcorrected that in GTA 5. It just didn't feel quite as realistic, and also some of the other things too, like being able to fly through your window and stuff. GTA 4 did a lot of really crazy stuff with that. But considering this was the game right after GTA, not right after, but the game that followed GTA 2, this is quite a step up, considering also just all the other things you can do in the game too. Focusing on just driving, you can do a bit more with it, right? Now dump the car. Can you really call it a car at this point? Or like a... Oh. Mission passed. Respect plus. times. The radio stations with these games have always been great, even as far back as 1 and 2. I still listen to those, the original 2, even today. There's some really good electronic tracks and stuff in there. Oh, that clipping. It's brutal.
In these days of moral hypocrisy, certain valuable commodities can be hard to import. On its approach to the airport tonight, a light aircraft will pass over the bay. It will drop several packages into the water. Make sure you pick them up before anyone else does.
Pretty to the point. They definitely didn't overdo it with the cutscenes in these early games. Probably because your main character was a mute. He couldn't say anything. Yeah, I'll try to get back into streaming. I've just been like at the end of the day where I come back home and I have like an hour to get ready for a stream, and it just, yeah, I've not been into it these past few weeks, but I'll try to, I want to stream the new System Shock remake, which is now like a month or 2 old now, but been wanting to stream that, see how it is. I actually was a backer, so it's been a while. Yeah. This is a pretty incredible feat of technology, though, to be able to see how far this goes out, and think that that was running on a PS2. Especially impressive when you get into an aircraft to see how far away the city, how much of the city you can see at any point in time. Times. Oh, and the water was so deadly. It's like accidentally one step off of it and you're dead. I'm surprised they even had boats in this game. Yeah, you just like fall into the water and you're instantly dead. Good time. Yeah. This is definitely a system seller for the PS2. Later on Xbox, GameCube, obviously, but PS2 definitely got a huge leg up with the GTA games. Kind of creative little mission, though, having to fall on a plane, even though a plane would be going 5 times that fast. Yeah, running under spec on a Pentium. If your car blew up, your whole screen would freeze. Yeah, they weren't super optimized, even for especially for PC. I remember getting a lot of mileage out of my my Pentium 2 with the 3DFX card. That got me to play games I really should have been playing. I remember I think I hit a wall. If I'm remembering correctly, I couldn't play Neverwinter Nights very well. When was that? I don't think I ever really got into it because of that. But let's see. The Steam specs are going to be always way higher. Yeah, I think I had a Pentium 2 200, and so their minimum specs, is it really that high? Minimum specs were definitely higher than what I had. Also think they were kind of going more toward the NVIDIA GeForce and things like that. So I wasn't really able to play it, if I recall correctly. So I never got into it at the time. I think I played a little bit of the Neverwinter games later. And of course, got a... Oh, my next machine, I think I did AMD for a bit, and then I did, what was it? Probably a Core 2 Duo was probably my next Pentium. Celeron. Yeah, God forbid you ever got a Celeron. I think my radio might have been bugged a bit, or they had a slightly better handle on the radio chatter in 3 than they did Vice City, because it's pretty constant. But the radio chatter in Vice City, at least my gameplay, was pretty like rapid fire, nonstop. Good. Yeah. People complain about not being able to run games nowadays. It was very difficult to stay on top of specs back in the day. Like, if your computer was more than a couple years old, you were basically really struggling to run it in at low specs. I mean, you still had older games, but graphics card tech and everything was expanding so quickly that every few years it really did double. Nowadays, you can run games with like a 5-year-old build, not too. You had a pretty good 5-year-old build. It wasn't too hard to run games. My build is almost 4 years old now. I don't remember when I ordered it. I ordered like pretty much the best consumer level computer you could get in 2019. Cyber. I don't remember who I ordered my computer from. Yeah, it was I think it was 2019. I think is when I ordered mine. But yeah, it was pretty high end for the time. But it's obviously little long in the tooth now. I forgot that they added the Respect Plus in later games. I kind of miss that now with the Respect Plus at the end of it. Alrighty. Well, yeah, no, it's super fun. Anyway, I'm probably gonna hop off here in a second. It's been fun though. I'll just probably do more streams like this, and this is kind of just out of my normal style, but I'll try to get into more weekly streams. I think I'm gonna be switching to Thursdays, so I'll have to update my my schedule and my channel, but I'll probably be switching to Thursdays. So yeah, I'll probably catch you next Thursday. Hopefully, no promises, but hopefully some System Shock. That'll be kind of fun. Anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Have a nice time, and take care.